Hello, my name is Mohammed Namadi. So today what I would like to talk about is SQLAlchemy. So what is SQLAlchemy? Well, SQLAlchemy is a Python SQL toolkit and object relational mapping. What does that mean? It means you can create a class in Python that will behave like an actual table. You can use it to send queries, you can use it to add data to that table, you can use it to add multiple users, or you can update information on that table. Basically make operation on that table. Alright, so if you're using SQLAlchemy, no ORM is required, so you don't have to use object relational mapping, because it allows you to send a normal syntax-full SQL query, which I will show you how to do that in a second. So SQLAlchemy also has high performance unit of work, so with very small lines of code you can achieve whatever you want to do. It's also modular, so modular allow you to separate your classes into different modules, which will make it easier for unit testing. It's also the function-based query construction, so you can construct any SQL query the same syntax for the database, and it will actually execute it. I will also show you how to do that in a second. Separation of mapping and classes, so you can separate you can have multiple classes and then with different mapping, so different class will map to different table. And then we have an inheritance mapping. So inheritance mapping is you can allow inheritance between those classes, because think about it, if you have one class that represents table A and you have another class that represents table B, if you have inheritance between A and B, it will have all the attributes of that table, of the parent table. And then we have row SQL, and then here are some drivers that you can use with SQLAlchemy, but keep in mind there are a lot more drivers you can use on SQLAlchemy. So for this tutorial we're only going to be using SQLite. SQLite is one of the powerful drivers so far as I know. And here are the core of SQLAlchemy. So it has the engine, it has connection, dialect, metadata, table, column. And so engine is the starting point of our SQLAlchemy app. So with engine, it allows you to connect with an actual database. And then home base for the database and its API. Sorry. And then we have a connection. So using connection, we can connect to our database. So it provides functionality for wrapped database and its API connection, execute SQL connection. So the connection actually allow you to execute instructions, SQL instructions. Dialect. So dialect is a query generation, execution, result handling stage. So any difference between your database, if you have different database, that difference will be handled using dialect. We have metadata. So metadata allows us to bind our engine with the connection, and also allow us to create table, column, basically a schema of a table. And so table is a representation of an actual table in the database. Column is a representation of column it's in a real database table. And create an engine. So here's how you can create an engine. First, you will import this function from SQLAlchemy, and then you can use it to create an engine. So in this example, you can see I'm creating an engine with this database here. And by setting this flag to true, it will output whatever query you send to that database, or whatever is happening in that database, it will actually output to your terminal, which I will show you that as well. Creating table. I'll show you how you can create a table from metadata.createAll engine. So first, when you assign your database to an engine, it doesn't really create that database until you call this function metadata.createAll engine. Then it will create that table. Query language. And then, here's how you can install SQLite on your computer. So here's the link. If you go to this link, if you're using a MacBook, you're going to be looking for a file that is in this format. First, it will have a SQLite, and then at the end, it will have a .tar.gz. The numbers here might change, depends on when you, depends on what year you're watching this video. So if it's not 2019, these numbers might be different. And we have a Windows, so if you're using a window, you're going to be looking for a file in this format. And then here on the bottom, I have some steps how you can install it on your MacBook. So step 1, after you download this file, you go into that folder where you download it, and then you untar that file, because right now you can see it's a tar file, so it's zipped. So you can untar that file and then go into this folder, and then within this folder you can execute config, which will configure your SQLite. And then you run make and then make install. That will install the SQLite onto your computer. Alright, so if you're still installing the SQLite, you can pause the video right here until you finish. Once you're done, let's get into some real code. Alright, so here I have some import from SQLAlchemy, but we're not going to use them yet. So think about it, why do we need somewhere to store our data? Why do we need a database? In general, why do we need database? Well, sometimes when we have a data in our program, we want to save it even after the program end. So like if I have, let's say I have a dictionary, so my dict that, and then what you can do is you can say my, and then you can give it some key, so key, and then you can assign it to some data, right? Well, once your program ended, this data will be gone. That's why you need a database to store that information. So we need persistent data management. So in Python, you can have a database, and the way you can communicate with that database is using SQLAlchemy. Alright, so let's check to see if we have a SQLite installed in our computers. So SQLite version. Alright, so as you can see, I have SQLite installed on my computer. Alright, so let's create a table. So SQLite, I'm just going to name my table testing.db. And you can see it open like an interpreter down here, which is this looks like a Python interpreter, but this interpreter is for SQLite. So you can execute any SQLite instruction. that table, if you have any table, it will display the table. And you can see it actually create that database that I just initialized here. Alright, so well, let's create some table. So create a table, and I want to name that table users. And that table schema will have a username, and that's going to be type text. So type text is the same as a string in Python. And that text is the username will be the primary key, because we don't want two users to have the same exact username. So we assign that to be the primary key, and then the second value that we want to have is password. So password, and that type will be text, which is kind of bad idea for a password to be plain text. But for the sake of example, let's just leave it as a text. And then we have another attribute, which is age. So age is going to be a number. And then we can create that table. So then now if I do dot table, you will see I have a table. And I can check the schema of that table. Users. So that will give me the schema of that table. So you can see that table just got created. Alright, so let's add some information into that table. Here I have some list of names that I want to use. So this is my name, Mohammed, and then those are just two of my friends, so Kyle and Grant. Alright, so let's insert Mohammed into the database. So call the insert into users and values. So the values that I want to add, first is the username. So the username will be Mohammed, and then the second attribute is password. So password is no password, and age is 19. Then hit enter. So now if I check my table, you can see select all from users, and then you can see I have one user in my database, so Mohammed, and then the password is no password 19, exactly the same way that I just type it in here. Alright, so let's add some more users onto our database. So insert, this is exactly the same one, so I'll insert Kyle, and then the password will be access deny, if I spell that right, and the age is 23. And then let's insert one more. So insert into users values, the last one is Grant, so username is, and then his password is SQLAlchemy. Why did I put that? I don't know. Alright, and then the last one is the age, so the age is 25. So I hit enter, and then now I can check to see what users I have in my database. So select all from users, and you can see I have 3 users in my database. Alright, so let's make some query onto the database and see what we can have. Alright, so assume I want to see the users that their age is at least 21. Well, you could do that by saying select username from users table where age is greater than or equal 21, and you can see it only display Kyle and Grant because those are the age where it's greater than 21. Alright, well, let's do exact the same thing in Python. Why do we need SQLAlchemy in the first place? Well, we need SQLAlchemy because sometimes we want to do exactly what we just did down here. We want to do it in our Python code. So that's why we need SQLAlchemy. Alright, so let's see how we can make that happen. So first and first, what you want to do is you want to create an engine. So engine, and you want to assign it to the method that you import from SQLAlchemy, which is create engine. So create engine, and we can give it the name of our database type. So our database type is SQLite, and then give it the name of that database. So our database, we're just gonna name it testing.db. And also remember what I said about if you use the flag echo, it will, so by using this flag echo, it will display whatever is going on in our engine, it will display it onto our terminal. Alright, so then the next thing you want to do is you want to create a session object from the session maker that we import from SQLAlchemy. What session maker going to help us do is it will help us optimize, delete, insert, like basically making queries on your database. So you can delete, you can insert, you can update values in your database. That's what session maker can allow you to do. So session maker, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna bind that session to our engine, and this session would return a function, and then we can call that function and assign it to our session. So now our session will be a function that we can call. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to create a base object, which came from base declarative. So we imported that from, again, SQLAlchemy. And then so we imported base from SQLAlchemy, and then we can use it to we can inherit from that base in our class, which I will show you that in a second. So declarative. Alright, so I went ahead and wrote some code because I realized I was typing really slow and I don't want the video to be too long. Alright, so what I did was I created a class that inherits from base, and then that base class has a member variable called table name, where you can give it the table name and it will assign it to your class object. So that table name, we feed it users, so the users will be the name of our table. And then here I have a variable called username, which is basically a column in our table, and we have a password, which is a column in our table. We have an age, which is a column in our table. And here I can see some errors. That is because we forgot to import those from SQLAlchemy. So SQLAlchemy, and I want to import column, and I also want to import strings and import integers. Alright, and that error went away. So what are we missing? Alright, so we also missing the table because we haven't created a table yet. So let me go ahead and delete this table so you can see a new table being created. Alright, so first thing, you want to make a connection to your engine. So engine that connect, because we need to connect our engine onto the database. And then next thing we want to do is we want to create that table. So using the connection and execute that. So connection dot execute, can't spell. Alright, so dot execute, and what I want to execute. So I want to create exactly the same table that I use down here. So I will create the same exact table. Alright, so this will create our table. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to create I guess that's pretty much it. Well, let's create some users. So let's say we have a user 1, which is of that type, the type user class, which is basically our table. So it's going to be on that type, and then we have a username. We'll assign that to be Mohammed, and then next will be a password. We'll assign that to be no password, so no password. And then we have an age, so age is 19. Right, so then now let's add it onto our database. So to add it, we need to use the session object that we imported from the SQLAlchemy. So session, and then session has a function called add that we can pass our user onto it. And then by doing this, it doesn't really add it onto the database until you do session.commit. So this will add it onto our database. I misspelled session. Alright. And then now, let's see what we have in our database. So I can use the session object and do a query. And then I want to query the user table. And let's see all the users on there. Alright, let's print result. So what this is going to do is only going to display the object, which is the table object. So let's see if it's going to work. Alright, so Python3 alright, I misspelled connect. Alright, clear that. Alright, so we can see here this is our object of type user, which is basically the user class, which is the table. Alright, so let's change this into a list comprehension. So for row in and that, and I want to display, I want to get all the usernames on there. So now result will have the list of all the users in my table. So let's run that and see. It looks like, okay, so we have an error. And this error is because our code is trying to create the table, but the table already exists. Alright, so what we want to do is, with this error, what you can do is, you can see that's the type of the error right there. You can capture that error. You can do a try block so you can capture that error in your code so it won't happen. But for now, what I'm going to do is I will comment that out and then clear that and then run the code again. Alright, so you can see I have a user called Muhammad, which is the only user that I added on there. Well, let's add some more users. Alright, we have a user 1, user 2, user 3. So the second one is going to be Kyle. And I'll actually show you, you don't have to have this assignment here. So like user equal Kyle, you don't have to have the user. This is just to make your code more readable to other people. But you don't have to have that. Alright, so the password is access deny, and then the age is 23. And then here we have the last one. So I'm also going to take out this just to kind of show you it's still going to work without that. Alright, so the last one is Grant, and his password is SQLAlchemy. I don't know why I put that. And then the age is 25. Alright, and then now let's add those users into our table. Alright, so user 1, user 2, user 3. So I added all those 3 users into my table, and then I commit that. So let's check to see if those users actually get added. Alright, so we run that. We have Muhammad, Kyle, and Grant. So all those users got added onto our database. Alright, so let's do exactly what we did down here, how we only display the users where their age is at least 21. So to do that is easy. All you need to do is add if row.age is greater than or equal 21, because that's all you need. And then by running that is only going to display those where the age is at least 21. So you can see Kyle, Grant, their age is at least or greater than 21. Alright, so this is just to kind of give you an idea how powerful SQLAlchemy is and what you can do with it. But based on this, you can see that you can do a lot of things. Like, because this is literally a Python object. Like, now looking at this, you're not even going to think of any database. You're just going to think of it like a Python object, because it's literally a class which is behaving like a table in our database. Alright, so for this tutorial, I'm just going to stop here because I don't want the video to be too long. But if you have any question, please leave a comment below. And if you want me to do more videos on different modules in Python, just leave a comment below. I promise I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.